with a hole in my soul. Life I've been living is getting kind of old. I don't know where I'm going, but I know just what I need. So come a little bit closer, a little bit closer.
Hey folks, it's Gina here for Scituate360. Today I'm in North Scituate at the River Club. They have a lot to offer here, so let's go in and take a closer look. Hi folks, today we're here at the River Club with Angela, the owner. How did you get started with your business?
Hi Gina, welcome back. We have been here for about 42 years. It was my dad's and my mom's. It was the Golden Rooster, and they opened it in 1972. So we've been here for a very long time. Now it's run by my husband and myself and my family, my two daughters. And of course my mom is still around. And so now it's called the River Club, and what we do is we just do functions. We're not open for regular business anymore. And we also do music. Music is something that we have great entertainers that come and use the facility, and people just can have a nice night to come out, maybe go to dinner somewhere, and then just come here, relax. The bar is open, have cocktails, and then just listen to really great music here in the Scituate area, because there isn't really a lot of places in this area, Gina, where you can just come, and just not go too far, not a lot of traveling if you live in Scituate or in the South Shore. Shore and just come and just listen to music. So we do a lot of that. We have some great names that come, and it's called the River Club Music Hall. And Steve Chase is the one that runs it. He gets all the music. And for us here, we open just for functions. We do weddings. We do a lot of fundraisers, which I am so happy to do, especially when it has to do with Scituate. And we also do like anniversary parties, reunions, birthdays, and it's set up just for functions.
Now, because your business has been in Scituate for quite a long time, what do you think your favorite part of Scituate has to be?
I think it's the beaches. I think living in Scituate, I call it a beach town. It is just an amazing place to live. Just to be able to get in your car and just like for us here in North Scituate, just go right down the street and just look at the water. I mean, I don't have the advantage to live on the water like some of the houses here in Scituate. I do have the marsh, which is great, but it's not the ocean. And just to go down to Minot and just look at the water and just drive by, and then in the summertime, seeing everyone walking around and seeing the kids out, you know, swimming, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful place to live.
And do you find because so many more people come to Scituate during the summer that it's busier in the summer months, or do you find it's busier during another season?
For us here as a business, it's seasonal. So we're busy, doesn't matter if it's in the winter, we might have a function or a wedding in the fall. But as driving around, as someone who lives here, of course it's busier. The harbor gets very, very busy. I mean, down the Scituate Harbor, they have everything. Anything you want, you don't have to leave your town. So that's the great thing. And then here, like, you know, just a little bit of traffic here and there, definitely in the summer. But in the winter, it's just nice. You can just go out like in the morning, like around 11 a.m. and like just be the only one on the road, you know. But yeah, it's nice. It's really nice.
And what do you think that Scituate means to you?
What it means to me? I would say I don't know, I just love Scituate. It's from my heart that I just love being here and very fortunate to live in this town.
And where can we contact you if anyone needs any more information?
Well, you can always call the restaurant. It's 781-545-1330. And then you can always email us, and we'll respond. And hopefully we can see you either to a show or a fundraiser or a wedding.
Now, having made the transition from the Golden Rooster to the River Club, do you have fond memories of the Golden Rooster when it was here?
Yes, I do. I've been working here since I've been like 10, 11 years old. So that tells you how old I am. But when it was Golden Rooster, my dad was in the kitchen. He was a great chef, and he always had people around him, you know, cooking. And, you know, people will remember, if you've been here in Scituate for many years, you know, there used to be a line outside. We used to serve hors d'oeuvres like popovers and the bean relish with the dip. And we used to serve all kinds of like little goodies and appetizers even before, you know, used to wait, you know, we used to have a wait in the bar, and then used to come in for dinner, and people used to be stuffed, you know, so people will remember the popovers. That was such a big thing. And then, you know, it's over time, you know, we're in an area, we're not down in Scituate Harbor with all the activities going on. We're in North Scituate, and it's a little bit more quieter. And obviously, we are in a zone where, you know, it's not that much business here. So people have to come here for a reason. So times have changed, and we've done it all over. It's the River Club, totally different look from the Golden Rooster. But it's, you know, when it was Golden Rooster, my dad was in the kitchen. Now he's no longer with us. But at least it's us cooking, you know, my husband, and, you know, he has other people that work with him. So the food comes from us, and, you know, it's really, really good.
And along with the change in the business, have you seen changes in the town of Scituate as well, as long as you've been here?
Yes, the population. The population in Scituate, I don't think it was that many when I was growing up going to the school. We did have big classes, though, but now it just seems like everywhere they're building here and building there, which I guess is a great thing. You know, we're welcome to have more people. It's great for the town. It's just a beautiful place, and that's why Scituate has become bigger than what it is. When it was Golden Rooster, we had the piano, as you can see right there. And when we changed things over, we took the piano away. and then it was sitting at our house, and, you know, it was just sitting there. So we decided to bring it back, but the only problem is, when we did bring it back, we realized that my youngest daughter, Nikki, had written on the piano how to play the piano. So she had it all out, you know, put in A, B, C. So when she was playing, instead of reading the music, she would know what to play. So we tried to wipe it off, but it's still there, and that's just kind of our little secret there.
If the viewers want to find the River Club on social media, where can they look for that?
Well, we have a Facebook page. We're always adding on pictures on that. And then we have our website.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Hi folks, it's Gina here for Scituate360, and I had a great time today here at the River Club in Scituate, whose coordinates are 42 13 40 north, 70 46 49.95 west. I'll catch you next time on Scituate360. Hi folks, it's Gina from Scituate360, and today we're going to be talking all about renewable energy. Right now I'm in the middle of Scituate's solar panel array, whose coordinates are 42 10 43 29 north, 70 44 22 27 west. Today we are going to be talking to Al Bangert, the Special Projects Manager here in Scituate, and he is going to be telling us how Scituate's renewable energy benefits our community. Hi folks, and welcome back to Scituate360. Today I'm here with Al Bangert, who is the Special Projects Director for the town of Scituate, and we're going to talk a little bit about renewable energy. So let's start off. Can you tell me a little bit about the windmill and what that project entails?
Sure. I would say about 7 years ago, the selectmen appointed a special committee, an energy committee, who had interest in looking at alternative forms of energy for the town. And the committee was very enthusiastic. Started with hired some consultants, got a grant from the state, hired some consultants, put up a Met tower, which is a meteorological tower, you know, with a little wind thing on the top of it. And that committee was out once a week for a whole year downloading the data. And so it was all volunteer work. At the end of that 1 year period, then the consultant helped them put together a proposal. The proposal ultimately went to the selectmen. The selectmen agreed with it. We went out then to find someone who would build this for us, because we didn't want to build it ourselves. It'd be way too expensive and too much risk for the town. So we sent out a proposal, got back 3 responses to our request, and the committee interviewed them in the evening, spent a lot of time on that, did the research on each one of the companies, and then selected a company called Solea Energy and Palmer Capital together to then go ahead and build and own and operate the wind turbine for the town of Scituate. When it was put up, it was quite a bit of excitement because it was done in the middle of winter. We had the very first snowstorm of that winter. The blades came in, and we had a blade signing ceremony, and about 1,500 people showed up to put their name on the blade. It was pretty cool. In fact, that winter we had almost no snow. And wouldn't you know it, the day that we had organized this blade signing was the one day when we got the first big snow blast. And the blade was positioned over at the golf course. Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out people came over with their kids to go sledding on that first wintry day, and they saw the turbine blade, came back with their grandparents, their husband and wives, and we had a tremendous turnout for that. Well, anyway, the turbine was put up, started operating on March 30th of 2012, and began producing 1/2 of the town's electricity for all of our municipal buildings. That includes the sewer plant, the water plant, all the fire stations, the town hall, police station, all of the street lights, and of course all of the schools. So 1/2 of our power comes from that wind turbine located right here next to the sewer plant.
Now, how much energy exactly does this produce, say, in 1 year?
Okay, it produces 3.5 million kilowatt hours per year. It's called a 1.5 megawatt turbine. So it produces, every time the blades go around, it produces electricity. That goes onto the wires that are up and down the streets. And then what happens is National Grid accepts that electricity, logs how much electricity we've given to them, and they give us a credit back of around $150,000 a year for that electricity that was produced.
And how did you get involved with the project, the windmill, and do you still continue your work with the project today?
Actually, I got involved because I was a public works director at the time, and the volunteer committee needed some help doing kind of the inside stuff. The how do you write proposals, how do you write contracts, how do you do negotiation, all that. Because remember, they are just citizens. They have full-time jobs, they have families, they go to ball games and everything. So they're very busy people. So I was assigned to go work with them on this. It was a great group of people to work with, and we carried it right through to the end. There's still a little bit of work every month working with the turbine. There are some issues that come up, and they need someone to resolve. So I'm kind of the, if you will, keeper of the books now on the wind turbine.
And now I know there's been a little controversy. Could you speak a little bit about what the problem was and how it's sort of being resolved or taken care of?
Sure. There are really two potential controversies, if you will. One is if you're downstream of a turbine and the wind conditions are just right, do you hear a noise from it, and does that noise exceed the state guidelines for noise? So the Board of Health has been reviewing this. The owner and developer of the turbine, which is now called Scituate Wind, LLC, has hired an agreed-upon acoustical expert to go out and measure the noise at the conditions where the residents feel like it's a problem for them. And so if the noise is greater than the state level, then some work will have to be done to fix that. And if the noise is below that, there's not much we can do about it. The second area is that in a couple of times of the year there's a flicker. In other words, as the blades go around, they cast a shadow. And that shadow ordinarily is in the summer, is way out in the distance in the period of sometime a couple weeks in November and a couple weeks in March, because of the angle of the sun relative to the turbine, the sun shining through those turning blades casts a shadow on the ground. And I think all of us have seen it. If you go down the driftway on a nice sunny day in March, you'll see those blades turning. And where that bounces on a house, it can be annoying to the residents. And so we have done an analysis to see if the flicker, as it's called, is greater or less than was predicted, and what can we do to, if it's greater than was predicted and agreed upon, what can be done to reduce that impact on those residents? And there's a couple people affected.
Now, in the foreseeable future, do you think an option would have to be getting rid of the windmill, or is that not on the table at all?
No, that's not on the table at all. We have a 20-year agreement. They need to recover their funds. I mean, the cost it costs us very little to get involved and put the turbine up. All the cost, the capital cost, which is around $4 million, was carried and borne by the private developers who built it on our behalf. And we have a contract with them. And see no reason why, if there are effects that exceed the limit, why those effects can't be accounted for and adjusted.
Now, switching gears a little bit, I know there's a new project at the dump with the solar panels and the solar array. Could you explain a little bit to our viewers what that entails?
Absolutely. You know, the same committee I was telling you about, is interested in renewable energy. After this long, exhaustive process, which took about 7 years actually, to get the turbine up and running, the committee thought, gee, should we look into solar energy? And quite frankly, they were a little bit exhausted because they'd spent so many hours on it, and there was some concern that the solar energy might not pan out because it's a more expensive form of renewable energy. So the committee decided, well, with the encouragement really of the town administrator, this is one of her projects. She wanted to have this thing get pushed forward. So the committee did send out a request for proposals just to see what was out there. And believe it or not, 11 companies came back and said they'd like to build it for us. And we had specified the conditions under which it would be built. They said they'd like to take a shot at it. They gave us prices for the electricity. The committee interviewed 8 of those 11, narrowed it down to 3, interviewed them further, and then in the end selected a company called Brightfields, which is located in their headquarters is in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Brightfields is a company that ordinarily does what's called brownfield restoration. Okay, a brownfield is a dump, land that can't be used for anything else. It might be where a chemical industry was located, and the ground. So their job is to work with, if you will, distressed property. Now, that's not to say that our landfill was distressed, but we wanted to be sure we would pick someone who knew how to deal with the Department of Environmental Protection, could deal effectively with all the other state regulators and not mess up our dump, not mess up our landfill. So we selected Brightfields. About 2 years later, as of this September 30th of this year, they turned the lights on this device right here, right behind you. You can see it's of the 17 acres of our landfill, 15 of it now has solar cells on it. And when that was turned on, it produced the other half of our energy for the town. So the town gets half of the energy from the turbine and half of the energy from the solar array. So we are now 100% self-sufficient as a municipality, and we make, the town saves money, about, as I said, $150,000 a year on the turbine, about another $150,000 on the solar array. So we've been able to create some money, not make a lot of investment, and get into the green industry of lowering our carbon footprint.
So for other towns looking to get involved in projects like this, do you have any advice for them going forward?
Yes. Actually, I think it's important that the request for proposal include some details that make it easy for everybody to respond in an apples-to-apples basis. For instance, include a copy of the contract that you want signed by the contract you're going to be using included with the request for proposals. I think it's important that you pick someone who has experience with landfills, not necessarily the person with the lowest price. I think it's important that you establish in the contract some milestones that the contractor must meet in order to keep the project going. We were very concerned that we would end up with someone who was fishing, got our project, but then didn't carry through and would actually tie up the town for 5 years before anything was ever built. So we want to make sure that if they didn't meet these certain deadlines, that the contract could be canceled and we would go find somebody else. You want to make sure that you have volunteers and staff members working together on this. And I think keeping the public involved to create some buzz is really important. It felt good for the committee, it felt good for the town, the selectmen were very supportive, and the fact that people are asking questions and interested in whether it's a wind turbine or the solar array was very helpful to us. It kind of kept momentum for the project.
And now, having a new position of Special Projects Manager, do you have any wishes or goals in mind that you would like to achieve in your time as this position?
All right, thank you. I was in the DPW job for 5.5 years. I intended to sign up for 2 years, and somehow it became 5.5 years. So I was retiring, and the town asked if I would work on some special projects on a very part-time basis. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm continuing to make sure that we get these 2 projects bedded down. We also have a project we're working on, facilities for the town, the master plan it's called. So I'm providing some staff support for that volunteer committee who's working on the facilities plan. The Energy Committee is going to be looking at owning the street lights. Right now they're owned by National Grid and NSTAR, and we're interested in buying those and putting LED lights in to lower, again, the amount of energy that we're using. There's another project where we have, actually from these 2 cells, we have a little too much energy, so we're working now with the vocational technical school to have them come on board as and we provide some energy for them, so that's another project. And then I'm also interested in the walkability of the town, street walks, sidewalks, crossings, and signage. and we'll be working with the Council on Commission on Disabilities to begin looking at our sidewalks so that when we're repairing streets, we repair the sidewalks and bring them up to standards for accessibility so that people who perhaps require a wheelchair to get around can find our sidewalks more usable than they are in some cases today.
If anyone has any questions or wants any more information, where will you send them to find that out?
They could email the town. I have an email address, abangert@situatema.gov. And then also you can post my phone number. That'd be fine. I don't mind if people call me.
Perfect. Thank you. I had a great time today speaking with Al Bangert, the Special Projects Manager for the town of Scituate. And today I'm here at the windmill, one of the main resources for our town's energy, whose coordinates are 4210 3026 North, 7043 4254 West. I'm Gina, and I'll catch you next time on Scituate 360. Hello, it's Gina, and welcome back to Scituate 360. Today I'm here at the Maritime Museum in Scituate, and I will be speaking with Dave Ball, the president of the Historical Society. So come on in and check it out. Hi folks, and welcome back to Scituate 360. I'm here today with Dave Ball, the president of the Historical Society. Could you tell me a little bit how you got involved in the organization?
Yeah, I started doing some research on some maritime history back about 20 years ago, and as I was making progress from that, I spent a lot of time up at the Little Red Schoolhouse, and eventually I became a trustee of the society, and then I became president, I guess around 1996.
And as president now, have you seen a lot of changes in the program, things that you've liked or didn't like, or things you kind of want to see in the future going forward?
Yeah, we've added several new buildings to the list of those that we have as an offer to the public. This is one of them at the Maritime Museum. We have also added the GAR Hall, the Bates House, and we're hoping, by the way, to add the moss shed that's down at the boatyard over here this summer. So there's been a lot going on.
And now, what is the main purpose of the Maritime Museum in Scituate?
The Maritime Museum, the full name of the museum is the Maritime and Irish Mossing Museum, and we opened it in 1997, and it focuses almost entirely on the history of the maritime community in Scituate, although we do touch a little bit about Hull and Cohasset, but it's mostly focusing on the maritime history of Scituate, and it's a very rich and long history.
Now, I see around us there are a lot of artifacts. Where do you guys collect those? Do you buy them from someone, or do they kind of find your way here?
Most of the artifacts that are in the building today have been donated to us over the years. We have some divers that work with us. Tom Malloy is a local diver. Debbie Jackson and Hank Lynch are also very involved with us here. So the artifacts that are in back of me all were retrieved from a shipwreck that they continuing to work on. But we've had a lot of people donate various artifacts to us over the years.
And I see behind us we have some artifacts from a shipwreck. Could you speak a little towards the more important shipwrecks that you've seen in Scituate or heard about?
Sure. The shipwreck in back of me occurred in 1853, came ashore at Third Cliff, and it came ashore during a very bad winter type of storm, a blizzard. It had about 40 immigrants on the ship, plus the crew. Everybody was able to get off the ship. It was driven high up on the beach, and today it's in fairly shallow water. And it's a protected wreck, which means that the state has control over who was able to dive on that, and we work with the divers that have the permits from the state to retrieve the artifacts. So there's a lot of interesting artifacts. Maybe I can just show you a couple of them when we. This one here is called a deck light, and as you look at it, you can see it's got a flat surface on the top, and it's got these ribs in the bottom. The idea was that they would insert these pieces of glass in the deck, and it would allow sunlight to pass through the top of the glass, come out the bottom, and the ribs would kind of distribute the light below the deck like that, so that during the daytime anyway, the crew could see what they were doing below deck. So it's a very old type of technology for getting light below the decks. And this one is really important because this was the tip of the captain's horn where he would bark out the orders to the crew up in the rigging, and it's got his name right on the bend here. His name was Olney Lovett, Captain Olney Lovett, and there were two wrecks right in the same location out here. So when the divers found this artifact, it confirmed absolutely that the wreck that they were working on was in fact this one here called the Forest Queen. So that's another interesting one. And we'd like to tell kids about how different metals do below the ocean. This is a horseshoe. We're not sure why horseshoes are on the boat, but there have been several found. They're made out of iron, of course. It doesn't do very well in the ocean, but kids are always interested and come up with different theories as to why there'd be a horseshoe on the ship. And actually there were several of them. There were no horses, by the way, on the boat. But it's another interesting piece. And we've been in contact with the family of the captain, Olney Lovett's family, and they've sent me this picture of the captain. They were not aware that this particular wreck and this particular ship of his came ashore at Scituate, so they were also very interested in this, and this was taken just a few years after this ship came ashore here. So, a lot of interesting artifacts here.
Thank you. And now, can anyone visit this museum, or do you have to have scheduled visits, or do the schools take trips here?
We encourage all the Scituate schools to come to the museum, and most of them do at grade 3. The museum is open every Sunday during the off-season from 1 to 4, and in the summertime it's open every Saturday and Sunday from 1 to 4. And we also open it by special appointment.
And if anyone needs any more information or would like to contact you guys, how should they go about doing so?
If they just contacted the Scituate Historical Society up at the Little Red Schoolhouse, that would be the best way to get hold of us.
Behind us, I see we have the Minot Light exhibit. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. The first Minot Light was built in 1849 out on the ledges off North Scituate, and it was an iron leg light like you see right here in the corner. It's a very nice model of it, very accurate. And the idea was that the waves would simply wash through the lighthouse legs, and it wouldn't offer any resistance, and therefore it would do well in major storms. It didn't do well, and in 1851 in April, there was a very violent storm, and the lighthouse fell over. And the two keepers that were out there were trapped. They couldn't leave, and when it fell over, they lost their lives. But the interesting thing is, before they drowned, they wrote a note, and they put it in a bottle, and then they threw it out the window at the top of the lighthouse, hoping somebody would find it. And somebody did find it, and I'm going to read it to you. The note is right here. It is dated Wednesday, April 16. The note says, "The lighthouse won't stand over tonight. She shakes 2 feet each way now. J.W. and J.A." J.W. was Joseph Wilson, and J.A. was Joseph Antone. Both of their bodies were found later. And then the federal government decided they still needed a lighthouse out there, so they built the present-day lighthouse, which you see in this photo mural on the wall here.
So I see behind us we have a life vest. Could you tell us a little bit about what that looks like and its purpose?
Yeah, this is a life vest that washed ashore when the steamer Portland sank in another violent storm This particular storm was in 1898, right after Thanksgiving, and the steamer Portland had left Boston Harbor heading to Maine, and the captain probably assumed that he could outrun the storm, and he didn't, and the ship was lost, and it was a terrible tragedy. It was considered by many people the Titanic of New England because of the loss of life, the mystery around the sinking, the mystery as to why the captain decided to sail. So it's a fascinating story. So this life jacket was washed ashore on the beaches of Cape Cod, and if you look very carefully here on this panel, you can see Portland. And these are two stateroom doors from the ship, and it's kind of spooky to be thinking that people were in their staterooms behind these doors the night that this vessel was lost. The same storm that destroyed the steamer Portland in 1898 also had a tremendous effect on the coastline of New England and on the shipping in this particular area. And this is a very interesting image right here. It shows the top of Fourth Cliff at the very top of the picture, and at the very bottom of the picture is the base of Fourth Cliff. And you'll see that there's a road of sorts that connected Third Cliff to Fourth Cliff. You can see the cart path right here. The storm in 1898 wiped away that beach, and when that happened, it changed the course of the North River so that the river today flows straight out to sea. But before this storm, the river got to this beach and then took a sharp right south, and then it went out to the ocean at the south end of Hummerock. So that's why today Hummerock is disconnected from the rest of the town, because of this particular storm. So it was a very violent storm, and this is a picture that was taken 3 days after the storm. So Third Cliff would be here. This is the top of Fourth Cliff in Hummerock. This is how the North River is heading straight out to sea now, and this is what people now know as the Spit. This is a model of the steamer Portland that we mentioned a minute ago, with the stateroom doors and the life vest from the ship. This is what the ship looked like. She was a side-wheel steamer, which meant that she didn't have a propeller. She was pushed through the water with these two side wheels. One of them you see here. There were about 200 people on the boat the night that the ship went down. And this is a very nice model that was done by the lightkeeper at the time out at the lighthouse. And up here we have an artist's drawing of the ship plowing through the seas the night it was lost. And up in here, right here is the ship entering Portland Harbor. The steamer Portland ran from Boston up to Portland, Maine. That was its route. Kind of a sad story.
Can you explain to us a little bit more about the shipwrecks and sort of the artifacts that are displayed here?
Sure. This next shipwreck that we focus on in the museum is the collision between the gasoline tanker Pinthus and the passenger liner Fairfax. These two vessels are off the North River in Scituate, about 5 miles out to sea, in June 1930. And there was a thick fog that evening, and they collided. And the gasoline tanker immediately caught on fire, and after a few minutes it sank. This is a picture that was taken probably 3 to 5 days later. The tanker is on the bottom of the ocean. The gasoline is still coming up to the surface, and it kept reigniting because of the fire on the surface. So people from Scituate could look out to the site of the collision for at least a week after it all happened, night and day, and see the flames burning on the sea. It was a terrible disaster. 49 people initially were thought to have lost their lives, and then it turned out to be 51. So it was the worst maritime disaster, really, right off the coast here. And this here is the steam whistle from the tanker. And again, one of the divers that worked with us at the museum was able to retrieve this artifact. It's really one of the premier artifacts of New England shipwrecks because they knew it was down there, but no one had been able to find it. And he spent years cleaning it up. It was all encrusted with seaweed and so on. So it's a beautiful piece.
So I see we have an old light from the lighthouse over here, and it looks awesome. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it's a really cool looking piece, isn't it? This is called a Fresnel lens, and Fresnel lenses were used in lighthouses in the 1800s. And each one of these pieces of glass will magnify and bend the light in a certain way, so that all the light at the top part of the lens will be focused down to the center, and the light at the bottom, coming out the bottom, will be refocused up to the center. And these center ones, the big pieces of glass, are called bullseyes. And the bullseyes would focus the light into a narrow beam, and then as this rotated, the beam would flash out across the ocean. So a vessel looking for a particular lighthouse would be able to count the sequence of flashes and figure out which lighthouse they were looking for and at. These were invented by a fellow by the name of Augustin Fresnel in the early 1800s. This one was probably in a lighthouse in this area. We do know that it was made in 1872 in Paris. They were very expensive, and they were also very effective. They came in 7 different sizes called orders, and this is a 4th order lens that would be typically used in a light like minute light. And the larger ones were 8 to 9 feet in height, and you could actually stand inside of them. So we're very fortunate to have this. This is on loan from the United States Coast Guard to the museum.
Thank you. What is the Scituate Lighthouse's light pattern?
Scituate Light has a flash sequence of a white light flashing every 15 seconds. Minute Light has a flash sequence of 1, 4, 3, and that repeats it over and over again. So each lighthouse has its own signature of flashes.
So behind us in this corner, we have the Etresco shipwreck. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the Etresco came ashore on St. Patrick's Day, 1956. And it was finally pulled off the beach on Thanksgiving Day, 1956. It was the granddaddy of all shipwrecks. There's no question about it. It was the largest vessel to ever come ashore at Scituate. It came ashore right in front of the lighthouse on Cedar Point. It was a perfect place for a shipwreck because there was a large parking lot there. It drew tremendous amounts of tourists all summer long. They finally figured a way of pulling it off the beach, and the salvage operation continued night and day for several months until Thanksgiving Day. And ironically, everybody was home having their Thanksgiving meal when the ship was finally pulled off the beach. So very few people actually saw it happen. But it was a tremendous tourist attraction for Scituate. Nobody was hurt in the grounding, and no one was hurt in the salvage operation. It was a really cool wreck.
So behind us, we have the exhibit about the Humane Society. Could you tell me a little bit about that and how the group sort of got started?
Sure. The Humane Society, it's actually the full title of the name is the Humane Society of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It was formed in 1785 by guys such as John Hancock. And they were very concerned that people were losing their lives on ships as they were driven up onto the shore, especially in the wintertime. Oftentimes people were not hurt on the shipwreck grounding itself, but they froze to death once they got onto the land. So what they started to do was to build what they called huts of refuge, with just little wooden buildings where the crew could go. There were blankets in these buildings, firewood, and a stove. And the idea was that eventually somebody might find them and then take them and get them more help. And as the 1800s went on, this organization became better and better at rescuing crews, and they developed a system of actually firing a cannon out to the ship which had a line attached to it. It was called the breeches buoy. And we have a diagram of the breeches buoy right here. And right here is an actual rescue that took place not too far from the lighthouse in 1909. And this is a crewman right here that's being pulled from the rigging of the ship to the shore. So they were doing this for a very long time. And in 1871, the federal government was embarrassed by the fact that the Humane Society was so successful. Congress authorized money to be put into an organization called the United States Life-Saving Service. So then the two organizations were kind of working side by side. Eventually, the U.S. Life-Saving Service became the United States Coast Guard. So that's a real quick history on these two organizations, but it all started here in this state. And if we take a look right here, this is an outline of the coast of Massachusetts, starting up in the North Shore and going all the way down to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. And every place you see a plus sign, that's a location where there was a Humane Society facility of one kind or another. And so when you get down to Scituate, you'll see one up in the Glades, you'll see another one in North Scituate, you'll see one on Jericho Road, you'll see another one up in Second Cliff and Third Cliff. So there were a whole bunch of them here, and the reason that there were so many here is that Scituate had so many shipwrecks happening continually. So it was very important that they had so many stations located right here. And this is kind of an interesting story. When Scituate bought the boatyard on First Cliff, one of the few remaining lifeboat stations from the Humane Society was located there. And we were able to use community preservation funding to restore the building. So this is a before picture of the building. And this is the building restored as it looks today. And this building is now being used for summer classroom space for the Scituate Recreational Sailing Program. So it's a great use for the building.
We have now made our way over to the room all about the mossers. So could you tell us about the process and the history around the mossers?
Sure. Irish moss grows off the coast of Scituate. It grows on large boulders. It does not grow on mudflats around here. So it's growing on rocks out there. It's a seaweed, and this is what it looks like. It's kind of crispy, and that's part of how it got its Latin name, Chondrus crispus, crispy. And it only grows about that high off the rocks. But when you look down at it during the summertime when it's growing rapidly, it looks like a carpet down there. And there was an Irishman that had come over to Boston from Ireland during the potato famine, and he couldn't find work in Boston. So he came down to Scituate, knew this moss was growing here, and he knew that if he started harvesting it, that he could make a good amount of money. So he brought his family down, and his good friend Miles O'Brien. The first guy was Danny Ward. So the two of them started harvesting the moss, and they had a cottage on Peggotty Beach, and they started harvesting the moss. And then the Forest Queen, the first shipwreck we talked about when you came in, came ashore, and they started salvaging some of the cargo from that vessel. So between the mossing and the cargo salvage, Danny Ward, the first mosser in town, was able to build himself a good-sized home at First Cliff. So he started the mossing industry around 1847. By 1870, there were over 100 families that had come over from Ireland, all here in Scituate, harvesting the Irish moss. And the nice thing about it was that they could sell it and make a good amount of money, and it didn't require a large investment. All they needed was a mossing dory and a mossing rake, and we have one hanging on the ceiling here. These rakes had a handle of between 14 and 16 feet in length, and the rake head looked like this. The teeth are very close together, so the mosser would set this down on these big boulders, draw it toward the boat, pull off the moss, throw it in the boat, and do that and do that and do that for about 4 hours. You could moss about 2 hours before low tide until 2 hours after low tide. The moss really wasn't harvestable when it was high tide, so you had to do it at low tide. So they would work 4 hours, and then they would bring the moss up to the beaches. And on the photo mural at the back of the room here, we have images of the moss on the beaches as it's drying. They had to dry the moss completely before they could put it away. So the moss that you see in the photo mural is drying, and the different patches there have been sitting on the beach for various amounts of time. The one at the second up from the bottom has been on the beach probably for 2 weeks. It's been totally bleached out, and the patch just above it's probably only been there for about a day or so. Once it was dried, they would put them in moss sheds and store it away until somebody came into town to buy it. So the question always comes up, what was it used for? These are some of the products that even today have Irish moss. It's the gelatin that they were looking for. And what the gelatin does is it stabilizes the food product. For example, Colgate toothpaste, it has that same texture throughout it. It gives it that consistency. All good ice cream has Irish moss in it. Carnation breakfast, fruit by the foot, some puddings, some processed meats and cheeses all have Irish moss in it. Now the interesting thing is, as people know, you have to list ingredients in all food products. You'll never see it listed as Irish moss, because people are going to say that's yucky. So what they do is they use the Irish name, the Gaelic name, for Irish moss, which is carrageenan. And so if you look on the ingredient list, you'll see carrageenan as one of the ingredients, and most people have no clue what that is and don't pay much attention to it, but it's Irish moss.
We had a great time here today at the Maritime Museum in Scituate, whose coordinates are 4210 3949 North, 7044 3330 West. And I'm Gina, and I'll catch you next time on Scituate360.
Hello, I'm Bob Chesia. I do Lawson for the Scituate Historical Society. My parents started this years ago. They were the experts on everything Lawson, to the point they actually named their dog Lawson, their golden retriever. My grandfather worked for Lawson, and his cousin worked for Lawson longer than anyone in Scituate. So that's sort of where we get our Lawson connection. But Thomas Lawson lived in Cohasset. His wife was sick, and the ocean air was good for her. They lived on Harmony Point, which is just past the Cohasset Yacht Club, on a private road. It's a Jesuit retreat now. They were out riding one day, and they stopped, and you could see the ocean, and all the trees were cut down, and she said, "Oh, this is a nice place for a farm." So she was everything to him. So he purchased property and built a farm. Within 1 year, he had the whole estate up. And when they moved in, before they moved in, a private water company put a black cast iron standpipe on this site. And Mrs. Lawson did not like the looks of it. So she complained to her husband. He took his architect and sent him to England. And he traveled from England as far as Constantinople. And he found a Romanesque tower on the Rhine River, which this tower is based on. It's 153 feet tall. There's 123 steps to the bell room, which is Lawson. Typically, his lucky number was 3, so everything was divisible by 3. He would buy stocks. He wouldn't buy 1,000. He'd buy 999. He hired Arthur Pepper to play the chimes for him when he first started. And he played patriotic songs, Bible songs, and so on and so forth. Well, one day he played Under the Bamboo Tree, which was sung by Judy Garland later. And it was decided it was too frivolous for the town. And from that point on, the town, or Thomas Lawson, someone had to approve what was played, which is kind of a joke. Originally, there were chains here that went to the top, and you could hear the sound through that like megaphone. There's 10 bells. We'll go up and see that in a while. And this was done over as an Eagle Scout project by Joey James, and it's beautiful. There's been a series of chimists, I guess you would say, that have played them, and the Historical Society plays them on occasion when we have an event, Heritage Days and so on and so forth. Would we like to go up the tower? Okay, we are up in the clock room of Lawson Tower, and the chimes play the Angelus, not the Westminster chimes as some people think. And it has been fixed, the bells have been sent out, and it does go in the morning and at night. Before, the chimist would play on weekends, sometimes 3 times a day. And this was a great place. He would play the chimes, and they would also have on the 4th of July, sometimes he'd have a fireworks show that Lawson would put on that would last for literally 3 hours. So he did spend a lot of money. And when the tower was built, it couldn't touch the metal standpipe, so he had to design the tower to go around it without touching it. And fortunately, there were a lot of shipwrights that built ships on the North River that were around, and they knew how to build curved surfaces and areas and so on and so forth. So that's why it is what it is. It's very solid. You can tell it does sway a little bit today, but we've got, what, 50-mile-an-hour gusts, I think. So it's, like I said, 153 feet tall. The weather vane was struck by lightning at one time. Then they put lightning arresters on. And we go down. If you look up at the top, at the vane, you'll notice that it's scalloped to look like the shingles go all the way up the weather vane, which is a cool trick that Lawson did. Everything that he did to the utmost. I mean, if a 2x4 was good, he'd use a 2x6. 2 hinges were good, he'd use 3. You can just tell by the hinges on the door. The clock is cool. If we're up here when it goes off, the paddles spin around and we'll hear, 5 bells? I think it's almost 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So I don't know if we want to wait for that, but we can, if you want, go down and go inside the tank and see what that looks like. Right now we are inside the water tank. It was ready to fall over at one point, so in around 2002 it was taken down. We left 10 feet inside. It was built by the Portland company of Portland, Maine in 1901. Lawson moved in 1902, and in 1902 it was covered. If you look at the structure from inside, you'll notice all the timbers. Okay, a private water company built the standpipe here in front of Lawson's estate, and Lawson built the tower around it and gave the tower to the town. He, however, still owned the bells and the clock, which was the town received at a later date. It supplied Scituate with water, this tank, until I believe 1988, and then it was decommissioned, and after a period of time it had to be removed, obviously. And I'm not sure what we're going to do with this space. That's a future project.
and welcome back to Scituate 360. I'm here today at the Scituate Animal Shelter to meet some furry friends looking for forever homes. So come on in and take a look. And welcome back to Scituate 360. Today I'm here at the Scituate Animal Shelter with Kim, who is the director. Could you tell me a little bit how you got involved with the organization?
I was literally driving by one day when we were in the new building, and I'd been wanting to volunteer at a shelter for a while. So I started volunteering in November of 2009 and then became a part-time employee in 2010, the end of 2010.
And I know you guys have a lot of volunteers here, so what is the sort of day-to-day routine for the volunteers and the people who work with the animals?
Well, we use volunteers we only have probably 6 paid staff members. We have about 160 volunteers. Wow. So in the shelter, we have our front desk staff that answers the phones, shows the animals, just helps people when they call in. And then we have the care staff. So that's twice a day, dog and cat side, 2 hours each shift. And that's every day of the week, no matter Christmas, New Year's, doesn't matter, they're here. And then we have volunteers, our board of directors, all volunteers. I think we're probably close to a dozen people on the board now. We have our help program, which brings food and litter to senior residents in Scituate, Norwell, Hingham, Hull, and Cohasset. And they're typically people that they might have to surrender their animals because they can't afford to keep them. So those are our major volunteer groups. We have foster homes. We have people who keep up with our communications, Facebook, our newsletters, all of that stuff. So every facet of the shelter.
And I know there might be some misconceptions out there that you can only adopt if you're from Scituate, but I know that you guys also help other communities. So what is kind of the farthest community that someone's ever adopted from?
Oh my goodness. We've actually had people come from New York to adopt a dog from us. And I just got off the phone with someone from Rhode Island who's interested in a dog. So we'll adopt to anybody as long as they're a good fit. We only take dogs from within the state of Massachusetts, dogs and cats. But again, we've gone out to Worcester, Springfield. If we have space and they need help, we'll take them.
And now the animal shelter being such a huge part of the community, you guys are in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, Heritage Days. What do you think that this organization really means to the community of Scituate?
Well, I think it speaks a lot to the fact that we started as a municipal shelter and we were really only in Scituate, and we've had the ability to grow. We still assist the animal control officer in Scituate, so we know where our roots are. And probably our biggest group of adopters and supporters is from the town. And we never forget that. We always want to keep them in mind, and we're thankful to be a part of the community every day. And it's also good for us to bring animals from areas that aren't as lucky as we are. And, we always say, like, you're coming to Scituate now and everything's going to change. So we're thrilled to be able, it's like, stepping up and getting into the really nice areas of the state. So we're thrilled to be a part of it.
And now yourself being so involved with the shelter and Scituate, what does Scituate really mean to you and having the opportunity to work with the organization here?
There are a lot of actually municipal shelters that are trying to get off the ground right now. Places like Rockland, Pembroke's trying to do a lot to assist with their shelter. So I think this is a really good opportunity for us to be an example, for them to look at what we've done and how we've really reached out to the community. For us to have purchased this land and built this building with all of the support, you can show them you can do it. You just need, we love to be able to offer our assistance and show them what a community can do. And I think Scituate's always been a really good example of that.
And does the shelter have any goals that they want to let the community know about, or any upcoming things that you guys are excited about or want to let the community know?
Oh my goodness, a lot of upcoming things. Our 5-year anniversary of being in the building is coming up this summer, so we're hoping to have a really big open house, lots of kids activities, stuff like that. But as far as our programs go, you know, we're always looking to expand and reach further into the community, that people who need it. We don't just adopt out animals or bring them into the shelter. We want to help the people that love them. So we're doing trap, neuter, return for feral cats. We just got a lot of money from a grant from PetSmart for that, and we're thrilled to get started. We have a lot of really awesome caretakers in Cohasset and Scituate that help these community cats, but no one's there to help them. So we're thrilled to start doing that more. And, you know, we're looking into the possibility of changing the Hooper Fund, the help program with the elderly people, and expanding that, offering them more services possibly, and going further out into the community.
Now, if anyone else wants to get involved who's watching or hears about this, how can they reach you guys?
They can reach us via email. Our website is a huge resource, and that's actually being changed soon, so it might be even better, hopefully. We're always looking for volunteers. Our application's on the website, or they can come pick one up. We're open 5 days a week. They can stop in and swing in. Somebody's here to open the door for them, so anytime they want to come in.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you.
So today I'm here with Diane, a volunteer at the shelter. Could you tell me a little bit about your role here?
I'm actually a volunteer. I started as a volunteer 18 years ago. I came in to donate some blankets, and I came away with a handicapped dog and a career in dog walking. I now do front desk duty and a lot of public relations, and I maintain and update the Facebook page.
And what would you say your favorite part about the job is?
The animals and the people. It's about the animals, what we do for the animals, getting them placed, getting them medically updated, sending them to forever homes. But the people give so much time here. Our volunteers are 160 strong. They give and they give and they give, and we have a bond.
And I know that you guys are in a recently new building, and I know it took a lot to get here. So what were some of the steps that you guys took to get to the new land and the new building?
When we realized that the train station was coming in behind us, we knew we were in trouble. We outgrew our facility, and we were lucky enough to be able to purchase this land. We launched a capital campaign, which lasted a couple of years to get in, and it took us over a year to build it. But if we have to thank anybody, it's the people in the community. It's the town of Scituate, it's the volunteers, it's the good people that gave nickels, dimes, quarters, the elderly, and the children that got us here.
And I know that you guys have a bench over there in memory of one of the women who helped to make this possible. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yes, the bench is in memory of Loretta Darien. Loretta Darien was one of the founding members of the Scituate Animal Shelter, who literally had bake sales and yard sales on her front lawn to get us started almost 25 years ago. She's a very revered and honored person in the history of the Scituate Animal Shelter.
And earlier, I know you mentioned how you guys helped spayed and neutered some of the cats. So could you explain how many you did and how you sort of made that possible?
We, kitten season, we call it kitten season. The kittens start coming in April, and kitten season runs from April to September. We get them medically updated, all their shots, vaccinated. We're now lucky enough to do pediatric spay-neuter, so the babies are now spayed and neutered even before they're adopted. Last year, we had approximately 130 babies come through our building, medically updated, spayed, neutered, and placed in adoptive homes.
And you, if you had to say, what was the biggest impact that the Scituate Animal Shelters had on our community?
I think initially to have a place for the stray animals. I know that was Loretta Darian's wish and the founding members' wish. There was no place for the stray, abandoned, lost animals. So that's our biggest service. We still do that today. We still take in the stray, the abandoned, the lost. Plus we network with other shelters. When we have the room, we help.
And if anyone wants to find out more information, I know you guys have a Facebook page, but where are some of the places they can look for more information?
Oh, we try to be everywhere. That's our goal, because we're not only just a member of this community. We're a member, we're a resource. We are a center for resource for other towns also. We have a Facebook page, which is Scituate Animal Shelter of Massachusetts. We have a website, which is scituateanimalshelter.org. We have public hours 5 days a week, and our telephone number is 781-544-4533. When we're always happy for guests, and we're always happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I had a great visit here today at the Scituate Animal Shelter, whose coordinates are 4212 2449 North, 7046 4428 West. I'm Gina, and I'll catch you next time on Scituate 360.